Hello friends, welcome back to episode 9 of DevOps series. So in this session we are going to cover the repositories, okay, and registry. Okay, so I will explain what is the difference between registry and repositories, and then a bit introduction of Git, how we work with the Git. Okay, so far we have discussed about the multiple features of the DevOps, like about the basic concept of DevOps, CI/CD, high availability, CIDR, basic concepts of networking, Docker, containers, and then Kubernetes. Okay, so now specifically when we talk about the repositories, okay, so what is the meaning of repositories or the registry? Okay, so traditionally, okay, how we work in a development environment where we have a multiple developers. So we will have a single project, right? And in this single project, multiple developers work together, right? Specifically in an enterprise world where we have a large big client. Okay, so one project is divided into multiple modules. Okay, and each developer or a group of developers work on the different modules of a project, right? Now, what happen when multiple developers are working on a single project and on the multiple different kind of modules, different modules, right? So each and every module developed independently by the developer or a single developer or maybe a group of developers, okay? And all the modules are tested independently, right? And once that they have tested independently, then you have to do the integration testing, like because this is a single project. So after development, all the modules are working in collaboration or not, right? So this is a part of the testing, right? So that means we have a multiple kind of a testings are involved there, specifically in a project where the multiple developers are working. Okay, and once we are sure that everything is good, okay, now the code is good for the production deployment. So what we do, we check in this project to a centralized location, or this is called the centralized repository. Okay, this is called the repository, or you also refer as centralized repository, right? So when the code is checked into this centralized repository, okay, from there it is ready to deploy in the multiple environments. It could be a development environment, this could be a testing environment. So development may not be applicable because development we have already developed application. So there could be a testing environment, there could be a quality environment, there could be a pre-prod environment, and there could be prod environments. Okay, then we deploy the code in the different environments. So the location or the centralized location where our latest code is exists, latest tested and certified code is exists, this is called the repository. Okay, so this is the traditional way how we do the development in an enterprise application where we have a large product where the multiple developers are working together in a single project, right? So now what is the benefit of this kind of a centralized repository? There are multiple kind of a benefits. Okay, for example, we can have a version control. Okay, so that means whenever we check in the code to the centralized repository, we can specify a version with that code, like version 1.0, version 2.0, version 3.0. So by this way, we can maintain the different versions of the code. Okay, it help you to do certain kind of a task easily. For example, you may want to roll back some your code. Okay, you may have deployed the version 3.0. Okay, and you may encounter some issues. You would like to roll back to the previous version, so you can go to version 2.0 easily by check out the code from the centralized repository, because the code is now maintained as a version control. Okay, so you can move to any version whenever required. You can directly go to from version 3 to version 2, or you can directly go from version 3 to version 1 as well. This is a bit flexibility and the benefit of your centralized repositories, right? Second is the collaboration, right? So that means, as I said, you have a multiple developers. Those are working in a single project on different modules, and then later apart, these modules need to be integrated and they need to check in the centralized repository. So that means it is allowing you to a better collaboration between the different developers and the different teams that are working to gain a centralized single goal, right? And then history, you can maintain the complete history of the code, right? So as I said, there are multiple developers, they are working on each and individual modules and then multiple files, so you can maintain the complete history of your code, like who modified the code, who modified a particular file, on which date and at which time it was modified. Okay, And so these all kind of a history you can maintain with the help of this repository or the centralized control tool, which is called the centralized repository for your code. So these are the certain benefits when we talk about the repositories: version control, collaboration, and the maintenance of history. Okay, so this is the net flow of how we work. Okay, in a professional or traditional environment, in the specifically in the development on a enterprise code where the multiple developers are working in a single project. Right now, when we talk about this repositories, okay, so we have a multiple kind of a repositories are there. Okay, so traditionally we have a two kind of a repository. One is called the local repository, and second is called the cloud repository. Okay, so it is very clear from the name as well. Local repository, which is in your local system; cloud repository, which is somewhere on the cloud. Okay, which is available for the general public. Right, so when it is in your local system, only you will have the access of that particular code, and once you push this code to the cloud repository, so anyone can have access that particular download or check out that code, whoever has the access. Right, so now this central repository, okay, mostly you will see now it is a cloud base. This cloud could be a public cloud, or this could be a private cloud, which is specifically for your organization. Okay, so this repository, as I said, this is a cloud-based repository now. So whenever users work on their local environments, okay, so first they develop the code in their local environment. They test it in their local environment, and once they are sure that it is working perfectly, then they check in it to the cloud environment, or you can say the centralized cloud repository. So in a nutshell, we have a two kind of a repositories. One is called the local, which is in your local system or PC where you work. And once you are sure that everything is good, then you can check out it to the cloud repository, which is a centralized repository. Okay, and from there, the code can be deployed in the multiple environments. Right. So now, apart from that, what we have learned in the previous sessions about the containers and the Kubernetes as well, right? So now, what is container? It is a package of your application softwares and all the dependencies, right? So for example, this is my container, okay, or this container is based on an image, right? This we have learned in the previous sessions. So suppose that we are not developing a traditional application, what we have discussed previously, okay, we are working on the containers. So that means when we work on the containers, so build the different kind of images which contain your software, your all the dependencies, right? Your configuration files, everything is inside your container, correct? So now in this way, what we need to check in or check out? We need to check in and check out our container images, right? This is not the traditional code that we were talking about some time back in this particular slide. So here we were talking about the code, right? For example, Java based code, right? But now what we're talking about here, now we are talking about the containers, right? So your applications are completely inside the container. So that means we need to check in and check out the containers to the centralized repository. So that means now again we will have the multiple developers. Okay, they have to build a centralized image. Okay, for the containers. Once this image is ready, this image can be pushed to your container registry, right? So initially, what I said, there is a repository, and second is a registry. So this repository specifically I was referring when we talk about the code, for example, Java based code. Okay, it could be any language code, and repository and the registry is specifically related to the containers and images. So when you are working on the containers, okay, you need to check in and check out the containers to the centralized repository. Okay, so that means we have a different kind of a repositories and different kind of a registries for check in check out of the code along with the container images, right? Now let me give you some basic details of the available code repositories. Okay, so as I said, we have a code repositories. Okay, and along with that we have the container registries as well. Registries, so this registry is specifically related with the container images. Okay, and this code repository is specifically related with the code. correct? So few of the registries or the repositories that we use today is GitHub, and then we have a GitLab, and then we have a big bucket. Along with that, we have multiple cloud repositories are also there, like Azure Repos. In AWS, we have a code commit. These are the multiple examples of the leading code repositories that we use for centralized check-in and check-out of the code. Right. Similarly, when we talk about the registries, okay, which is completely specifically for the container images. Okay. So for that, again, we have the Docker Hub. We have the Docker Hub registry, and then we have GitHub container, which is also called GHCR. Then we have a GCR, which is a Google container registry. And along with that, we have a ACR, which is the Azure container registries. So these are the different registries that we use to push, or you can say push pull or check in and check out of the containers. So when you are working on the code, traditional enterprise code, then we use these are the different repositories that we use to check in and check out of the code in the centralized location. And if you're working on the containerized technology like Docker or any of the containers, okay, so for to check in and check out, or which is also referred as push and pull, okay, for that we use the different registries, and these are the different leading registries that mostly we use. Along with that, we have one artifact registries as repositories as well, which is called the artifact repositories. Okay, there we store certain code files like war file, jar file, EAR file. If you have some zip files, okay, so these kind of a zip files or these kind of artifacts or certain kind of a packages we can install in the artifact repositories as well. Okay, for example, we have a JFrog. Okay, along with that, we have a AWS code artifact, and then Azure artifact, GitHub release. These are the example of artifact repositories, right? So this is about your repositories and the registries. Now, when we talk about Git, how the Git is worked. Now, suppose that, as I said, Git is one of the leading tool that we use for the centralized this code management. Okay, and so how this Git work? Okay, I will tell you quickly when we work in a Git, then how is Git work? Okay, so in Git we have a three main important areas: one, two, and three. So this is referred as your project area or project folder. Second is a staging area. Okay, and third is referred as your local Git folder or the central repository. Local, or you can refer local repository only. Okay, so that means these all three parts are in your local system. For example, it could be a local PC or a laptop where you are doing the development. So when we install the Git, okay, after installing the Git, when we start working on the any development of any of the project area or any of the project, what we do, we create a simple project folder, and that project folder is referred as project area. For example, I have created a folder with the name of payment. I am working on the payment application, and after that, I have created multiple files related to my code in this particular payment folder, like multiple Java files, then multiple class files. There could be some XML files, there could be some HTML files, right? So we are doing the development inside this project area. This is called the project area, right? So this is in your local system, and along with that, the staging area and local repository is also in your local system. Now, when your project is developed, you have defined all the artifacts in the project area. Your Git is not aware about this one, because this is just a local folder that you have created and you are doing the development of applications. Their Git is not aware about that one. Okay. Now, to make your Git aware about that, this is your project artifacts where you are working. Okay. And your Git should start tracking all the items or all the project items that you are configuring. For that, you need to move this item to the staging area, Git staging area. Okay. So for that, we use the command git add, and then your project file name or folder, whatever you want to give. Git add command. So with the help of git add command, your code is moved from your local project area to your staging area of the Git. So now, once it is in a staging area where you have added with the help of git add, okay, this project is now Git start the tracking. Now Git is aware about that one. This is your project and you are working on all these files when it is moved to the staging area, right? So now once it is in staging area and you are sure that, okay, everything is good and now you want to push it in the main Git repository, which is also called the local repository, or this is also referred as the Git repository, or we can also refer as local Git repository. Okay, so you need to lock the code. Lock the code means before sending this code to centralized repository, you need to move the code from staging area to your local repository. Okay, and for that we use the git command, git commit command, git commit command. Okay, so now with the help of git commit, your project is moved from staging area to your local repository, which is called the git repository, and this will be a .git folder with the name of .git. Okay, so that means this complete code will be moved to staging area with the help of git add, and from after you run the git commit command, the from staging area it will move to a folder inside with the name of .git, and this is referred as local Git repository. That means now once the code is there, once you have done the git commit, okay, that means now code is ready to send it to the centralized repository, which could be a cloud-based repository. Okay, so now suppose that here we have a cloud-based repository, centralized repository. So now we send this code from here to the cloud-based registry with the help of push command. So this is a net overview of the high level overview of the Git, how it works. Okay, so in subsequent sessions I am going to show everything with the executions as well. So as of now I am just giving an overview what is repository, what is registries, and along with that how Git work. When we install the Git and when we start working on Git, the very first thing we create a project area where we develop our files. Once it is done, we use the git add command. It moves it to the staging area, and once we are sure everything is good, then we run the git commit command, which move it to the local Git repository, and from there we send it to the cloud centralized cloud repository with the help of push command or add commands, right? So this is the flow, how we work with the Git and when we develop the code. Okay, so in detail with the execution I am going to cover in further subsequent sessions. Thank you.